Hello and welcome to episode 31 of Trade Talks Unlocking the Experience. Today I'm joined by our first keynote at the experience in the fall, and my special guests are Chris Nordyke and Wayne Hudson. Chris is the co-founder and president of Floodlight Consulting Group, and he shapes the firm's strategic direction. He speaks at industry events and workshops on leading in sales, operations, customer experience, and enterprise value. He is also the co-host of Head, Heart, and Boots podcast and a leader in delivering tailored consulting and fractional sales management solutions. Next, we have Wayne. He is the business manager at Floodlight Consulting Group. He leads growth through innovation in sales and marketing and operations. He's managed a portfolio of 400 plus properties and consistently earned top manager honors, showcasing deep expertise in operations and leadership. He heads overseas quarterly for strategic planning and applying analytical insights and long-term visions to guide firm-wide decision-making. So, without further ado, please welcome Chris and Wayne. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome. It's
Hello,
great to be
hello.
here. This is fun. Been looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Likewise. Before we started recording, we were kind of talking about how we've always seen each other in passing, and we've got to finally meet and lock this in, and how excited we are to have you guys keynoting the experience this year on opening day. Like, what a dream come true for us. We can't wait to see you guys take the stage. And this episode, we always like to talk about you and what got you guys here and what led you to keynoting the experience. So, first and foremost, does anybody really know how you guys ended up in this industry? So, I'm going to bounce this one off to you, Chris. How did you get here?
Well, it's like the rest of my career. It's been a circuitous path. It's prior to restoration, I was in insurance, which is a fairly common transition, but I wasn't in the operations side. A lot of people come into this industry, they were on the adjusting side of the business, they were a claims professional. But there is a small batch of us that were insurance producers. And so I was a State Farm agent. I owned an agency for about 5 years. I worked for corporate and other agents for roughly another five. And I hit a point where I felt I felt pretty constricted by kind of the big corporate environment. And this is no surprise to Wayne. Of course, Wayne's heard this story too, but I was not a compliance guy. I was always bucking the system. And of course, State Farm is made up of some pretty rigid SOPs, as you might imagine. And I was that guy that would like hold an event and I wouldn't fill out all the special approval forms that were supposed to be signed. I just do it and apologize later. And of course, that's not the environment you do that in. And so I was constantly getting my hands slapped. And so I just thought, I really want to branch out again and build something and something I have control over. And so I ventured into consulting for a bit, couple years. I thought I wanted to get into technology. I was part of an iPhone app startup with a couple partners, consulted some technology companies on sales and stuff like that. And then ultimately I met my friend Brandon, and he was working for a childhood friend of mine who had just bought a very small carpet cleaning company and was kind of in the process of converting it into a restoration company. And we met at a small brewery in Salem, Oregon, and we just hit it off. And I started consulting for them. And that was how I got my feet wet in the industry. And then they called me back about a year later and they're like, hey, would you come on and lead our sales? And that was, God, almost 10 years ago. And the rest is history. And then Brandon and I worked together for probably combined almost 6 years. And then I launched off to start an executive coaching business for this industry owners. And one of my clients had a bunch of operational needs, and I'm like, God, I got to get Brandon in here to talk with them. And it was just pure gold. Like at the end of the call, they're like, how do we hire both of you? And we got off that call and we looked at each other and we thought, I guess we just started a company. you know? And we're like, what are we going to charge these people? And it's funny because we still have those conversations today. What are we going to charge these people, right? It's like figuring out how do we value our time and what is this thing that we're building and what is this thing that we're providing people. And so we came up with a number and on the subsequent call, they're like, yes. We thought, oh man, we probably didn't charge enough.
Isn't that
But then
how it
that
always
led
happens?
yeah, right. And then that led to another customer and another and another. And in fact, we're still friends and we're still connected with that very first customer over 4 years ago. And in fact, they're as a client, they have referred us more than any other client we've had was that very first client. I think they alone sent us 5 referrals, 5 clients over the subsequent year and a half or 2 years that we were working with them. So anyway, that's the story in a nutshell.
Yeah, and that's all she wrote, right? So how did Wayne get pulled into this amazing group of
Oh, I
people
got to
there at Floodlight?
yeah, I got to tell this story, and then Wayne probably has his own version. But so Wayne, my short story is Brandon told me about this guy, and actually the first time I heard about Wayne was when Wayne was a job. When Brandon and I were at Belfour, I just and it wasn't even a real huge topic of conversation. It was just another fire job that Brandon had his hands in. We had a small team. Brandon was part of a turnaround project, so there was a Belfour branch in the Northwest that was struggling, losing money, and so Brandon was hired to come in and fix it, right? And in the course of that, I was attached to Brandon's branch on the national sales team, and so he and I were still friends from early days. And I just remember him talking about this big fire job at a multifamily property and this guy, Wayne, that he was working with. And he and Wayne ultimately hit it off and started having lunch together periodically. Well, fast forward, Wayne went on a sabbatical. Wayne took a sabbatical, and he can talk about that in a minute. But when he was ready for the sabbatical to be over, he saw a posting at Floodlight that we were hiring for an executive assistant. And he reached out to Brandon. He's like, hey, man, been a long time. I'm getting ready to come back to work. I saw this posting. I'm your guy. I'll be your executive assistant, you know? And Brandon mentioned it to me the next time we met. He's like, hey, I got our guy for executive assistant. This is the guy. He's the guy. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, why? Like, why would this guy be the guy, executive assistant? He's like, trust me, this is our guy. And within days of us hiring Wayne, I was like, holy cow, this is the guy. and and pretty much that's been my story with Wayne. Every couple of weeks, I'm like, holy cow, this was the guy. Like Brandon and I, this was just a regular rhythm of, oh my God, I'm so glad we hired Wayne. And here we are. It's been Wayne, how long has it been, man? I don't think it's full 2 years yet,
Like
is it?
18 months, yeah.
Oh my God, it feels like Wayne's been with us since the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's how we found Wayne. Wayne was ready to stop his early retirement, get back to work, build something with the team again, and we lucked out with the timing. You know, it was just one of those like the stars aligned. Like if we'd have waited, somebody else would have snatched Wayne up, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. Um, one of those beautiful things that happens in the universe sometimes, you know.
Yeah, and I would say definitely the power of just collaboration and building your own network, whether it was for professional or
Yep.
personal reasons. It led you guys here down this path, keynoting the experience and helping our business owners every day. Wayne, do you have anything to add? I mean, that sounds like a fairy tale, right? Just like Chris said, the stars aligned, man.
Yeah, I feel like he went long form, so I'll keep it short form. The sabbatical that he's referring to, I love to joke that I was in property management still, had a little over 400 units, and started experiencing some friction in a relationship that I was in, as well as and I was in my early to mid 20s, just a girlfriend, and also had some friction with a new boss. I got a new portfolio manager, and so I love to say naturally I did what anybody would do in a circumstance like that, and I completely quit my career, threw everything I own into a truck, drove across the country and moved into a laundromat and started training jiu-jitsu full time. So that's that's the sabbatical that Chris refers to. And I did that, traveled the country, competed a little bit, and got to do some really fun stuff for a couple years, and then um, eventually decided that it was time for me to go back to work and start working a little bit. I really wanted to work remotely. I still do train nightly, and jujitsu is I now refer to it as a hobby that I take far too seriously, but it's something that I think is kind of just like serendipitous about the communication with Brandon. I didn't actually see a job posting. I was thinking that I wanted to learn how to code at the time.
Hmm.
And I reached out to him and text him. And what I was originally going to ask him is just if he knows anybody in that world of just tech in general, because I had some questions about this new program that Amazon had spun up. It's called AWS, and
Mhm.
their new, gosh, I can't remember what the Amazon Cloud Institute, I think is what it's called. And
Hmm.
it's basically trains people on AWS and helps them find job placement, whatever. And I'm a pretty direct guy. And so I type out this text message. And basically, I hadn't talked to Brandon in, I don't know, a year and a half or something. And the text message read, "Hey, do you know anybody that does this thing? I need to talk to them." And then I thought, don't do that. Ask him what he's doing. And so that's what I did. I said, "Hey, what are you up to?" And he said, "I'm getting ready to interview somebody for an executive assistant position." And I said, "Don't do that." Hire me. And so, um, anyways, yeah, that's what brought me into Floodlight, and it's been a ton of fun putting to use a lot of the skills that I gained, via those management and leadership experience that I got in my early 20s, and yeah, it's been a ton of fun being at Floodlight and being a part of what we're building here.
Yeah, and I would definitely say for you guys, your guys' story, I don't know if everybody really knows it. And so, like, taking the time to talk about it is honestly really refreshing because how many of us have sat here and said, like, oh, should I reach out to that person? I haven't talked to them in a while. Just
Mm,
do it. Shoot your
yeah.
shot. You know what
Oh
I
yeah.
mean? Like, the worst thing that could happen is, like, hey, no, I don't know of anything or I don't have anything for you right now. Like, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen. And quite frankly, that's not bad at all, right? Because
Yep.
Hmm.
then that leads to somebody saying, oh, hey, are you hiring for something? I have a guy or I have a gal. You know what I mean? So,
100%.
I think that story, just hearing how you guys came together, Chris, how you guys created Floodlight is just really amazing to hear because I think for those listening who may be in a space where they're like, oh, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I do things? This is really refreshing for people to see you two successfully doing your own thing with Floodlight, being able to keynote and just really be involved with the industry as a whole, and all it did was you took a chance, right? You
Yeah.
maybe it was a shot in the dark, maybe it wasn't, but you guys just led with your head and your heart, and it's led you guys down this amazing path, right?
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
and so I think, when we were talking in the early stages of keynote, like Chris and I were just bouncing off so many different ideas and like where we wanted to go with things. And I think we came to this spot where we're just like, hey, we need to do something that's beneficial for people. As soon as they walk out of that room, they're able to say, oh, we can implement this, or oh, hey, we were missing
Yeah.
this. And that kind of led us down this path of a duo keynote, right? Um, you guys both wear different hats, but you guys
Mhm.
are very in sync, and I think it provides a great dynamic for those who really need to hear some real hard truths, if you will. I believe
Yeah.
Chris and I talked about that too. Like, sometimes the hard truth is really what you just needed to wake up. So, a little bit about your keynote, you're sharing challenges and growth and, like magic tricks, if you will. But what are some of the hard truths that, restoration owners need to face? Don't give all the secret sauce here, but what kind of led you guys to this topic, just based on what you guys are seeing in the industry right now?
Hmm.
Well, first of all, I want to just go back and correct something that in your intro of me. It occurs to me that I probably used Chat GPT for that bio I sent you. Is that I don't lead our strategy at Floodlight. I don't. I don't lead our strategy at Floodlight. If anything, it's a collective effort. But Wayne, and I think Brandon would wholeheartedly agree with this too. Wayne brings discipline to the strategy and the ideas that Brandon and I and the three of us bring to the table. And the best evidence of that is, this year, Wayne started leading our quarterly strategic meetings between the three of us. This is kind of our leadership team at the moment. And so so that's important. And so I want to hand it off to Wayne, because when we started talking about this business planning idea, you and I, Kayla, it was on the heels, frankly, of me going through this strategic planning process that Wayne led Brandon and I through in Q1. And all three of us were like, God, that was really useful, really helpful. It really zeroed us in on like the really important things in the business, because you can just get so wrapped up with the thing in front of you or the big picture, and strategic planning kind of brings both of those things into focus. And it was just really powerful. And so that's why I thought, God, this topic needs to be like all small business, because we're a small business. There's like
Yeah.
11, 12 people on our floodlight team, right? We're
Yeah,
not huge. We're not 50 people. And so I thought, God, this is applicable to all of these small restorers and carpet cleaners and whatnot. If it was valuable to us, it's probably valuable to them. So I'll pass the baton to Wayne, because
yeah.
Wayne's been thinking about all of this stuff ad nauseum since the beginning of the year, and certainly before that, he had his own planning process he would do with teams that he's led previously. So,
Sure.
so what was the
Well,
question again, Kayla? Wayne, do you need her to
hard
restate it?
truths.
Hard
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 truths,
truths.
truths.
hard truths,
There you
real
Yeah.
go.
hard truths. And I would definitely say, Chris, to your point, you mentioned like, you know, strategist, right? And I think just speaking to you guys and Wayne, honestly, this probably, actually not probably, it does play into your personal life, because jujitsu is strategy
Yeah,
and skill,
100%. Yep.
right? And so I think you guys obviously know you got the man for it, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because that's the kind of mind that you have. And,
Mm.
I don't know you yet very personally, but just someone who trains like that as a hobby and who is so driven to help make people better, you have to have that strategy mindset. So, to
Yeah.
Chris's point, you guys implemented this in your guys' business and you saw what it did for you. And you guys, I mean, imagine applying that to the industry. So, I'll get off my soapbox and hear what the hard truths are. But I just wanted to really kind of go into that. Like it's not just professional that you're in that mindset. Jujitsu is a whole nother level that involves your mind, not just your
Yes.
physicals. And
Yep.
so, it's the same thing here with strategy. You can have a great strategy, but if you can't stick to that strategy or pivot when you need to, it doesn't really do you any justice or your business any justice. So, what are these hard truths that we need to learn about?
Yeah. I think the biggest one, I'll try not to be too tangential here because you're opening Pandora's box anytime you ask me a question about what I think about something. I'm just going to warn you ahead of time. But I think the biggest one for me is that I feel so passionate about strategic planning and overall being intentional, because if we're not very specifically aiming at something, I believe that you enable yourself to be a victim of circumstance. And I know that that may not necessarily be something that resonates with a lot of people, but I would go so far as to describe it as a phobia. The idea of waking up one day in my mid 40s and having a life in all facets, personally, professionally, financially, spiritually, emotionally, in terms of the quality of relationships that I have, that I feel like happens to me, that I just existed. I just woke up and I solved the presenting problem, and I just kind of shoot and move all the way through, and just kind of then you just get what you get. Like that's a terrifying idea to me. And so I just, in all areas of my life, I'm constantly asking myself, what am I aiming at? What do I want this to look like? What do I want my relationships to look like? Right? And what kind of human being would that require me to be? And what do I want this company to look like? And how does that affect my decision-making process? What do I want my financial future to look like? And how does that affect my decision-making process? And what happens is when you don't have something that you're aiming at, I use this example all the time where you get into these conversations where you'll see two options, two potential solutions suggested to you, and they both seem like really, really great ideas. And a lot of times they are. And it can make the decision-making process be really, really complicated. An example would be something super simple, like, do you use debt to grow your company? Say, for example, there are a million different reasons why using debt and not using debt are very viable, very sound decisions. But if you do something like think about what you want your life to look like 10 years or 20 years down the road, and you paint an incredibly clear picture, you can take a simple decision like that and you can make making the right decision that simple. Not easy, and I'm really careful to delineate, but to differentiate between the two, right? It doesn't make it easy,
Yeah.
but it makes it really simple.
Mhm.
And the benefit of making decisions that way is that it gives you the access to speed. And so now we start iterating in our companies faster. We respond to market trends faster. We make decisions faster inside of our organization. Law of averages, you get enough at bats, eventually you're going to hit a home run, right? So the faster we're iterating, the more balls we're picking up out of the ball pit, the more likely we are to find the one with the golden ticket in the middle. Now, the hard truth is to bring this home. I just fundamentally believe if you're not doing that and you're not being intentional, I don't care how successful you are, by the way. Cool. Your company does 20 million bucks. You're a victim. You
Yeah.
show up every day and you just do the thing and thank God or whoever it is that you think that you're talented and skilled enough that just showing up and being you got you 20 million bucks. Like I'm really proud of you, but you're still a victim of circumstance. And I don't want to be that way. I don't want to live my life that way. I don't want to subject my friends, my family, my team, my finances to that. And so really focusing on having intentionality and focusing our attention and our intention on the specific goals that we're trying to achieve, it gives us a certain amount of authority back in our lives that I personally value a tremendous amount. And so I think as people are trying to craft their businesses, that's the not so elevator pitch about why I would suggest that this stuff is really important is it gives you control to be intentional about reaching the outcomes that you aspire to reach.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I would definitely say to all of that, which, gosh, hard follow-up. I think I should let Chris talk, you know. But no, you said a lot in that short, explanation, but intentionality is huge. Also, you
Hmm.
mentioned 10 years. How many times do we talk to somebody and they're only thinking about a year? They
Hmm.
may not even have a 3, a 5, a 10-year plan. And to your point, yeah, that's great. Maybe you are making 20 million, but what does that look like past year two? What does that look like past, year five? And I think, sometimes people are often scared to pivot, but with intentionality, there's a way to pivot. You also almost
Yep.
prepare for the best and the worst so that you're being proactive and not reactive, right? And so I think Chris and I had a lot of conversation around just that. Being
Yep.
proactive, intentionality. It's okay to pivot, even if it's after quarter one.
Hmm.
We've seen the last couple of years have been a little up and down, if you will, and pivots were needed, right?
Yep.
How many people
Mhm.
didn't pivot, right? How many people are just trying to take everything in that they can to make that money, even if it's only $1 million, right? And so, your guys's keynote is there to not only help those there in that room, it's there for the future too, because you guys are practicing this. So in a year or two, if we come back, you're going to say, hey, we talked 2 years ago and we've actually made some changes. And that's the
Yep.
beauty of working with you guys, right? Because I know things have changed since Chris and I first met, right? And that's the beauty of evolution in this industry as a whole. And I think sometimes we're afraid to evolve, but for what you just said is you have to have that and it has to be intentional, right? And so, I'm excited for this. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm definitely going to be in there taking notes. And I don't even own a restoration business, but I think it's a great opportunity to help people shift their mentality, right?
Mhm.
Mentality helps drive these things. And I think you guys can speak a lot on mentality. I think you guys have a get shit done mindset, but let's do it right. Right. And so I think there's a difference between just getting it done, but getting it done right. So, Chris, do you have anything to add to what Wayne said? I mean, man, that one knocked my socks off, if I'm being quite honest.
Give us a hard truth, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, no, I really don't have much to add to what Wayne said. It was right on. I think one of the things that I'm aware of and that we see with companies we work with is, Wayne gave the example because it's a real one where we run into companies all the time that are doing 10, 15, 20, sometimes even more than 20 million in revenue without any kind of fundamental universal processes in their business that everybody's adhering to. And sometimes, and a lot of times we scratch our head, but I think at this point we've just recognized that people can go a long way on talent, drive, and determination and good values, like,
Yeah,
treating people.
absolutely.
That can go a long way. But the problem is that we don't know what combo of those things is creating the success. Like when you don't ever submit to a strategic planning process, you kind of don't know exactly why you're winning.
Mm,
And so you can't, as you grow, inevitably, it's like you go from 5 million to 10 million to 15 million to 20 million. Your team has significantly grown beyond your own headspace and your core leaders that were driving that growth. And so if we don't ever build a plan with wayfinding signage, like, okay, here's how we'll know when we got to here, and we're tracking our results, and we're looking at the data, and we're being strategic about what levers and knobs we're turning and what switches we're flipping from quarter to quarter. We don't really know what's working.
yep.
And so therefore we don't know what to teach our people about how we win. And it's like at some point, especially in this day and age, if your only answer to why we're successful is, well, we do the right thing, that ain't enough anymore.
Yeah.
Like I used to like I speak a fair bit on customer experience because I I'm drawn to it for whatever reason. And I think with customer experience, we just don't we often don't know what makes people happy. And it used to be that customer experience was just showing up on time, doing what you said you're going to do, um, uh, giving more than you say you're going to give. Like there's just these old school principles, right? The problem is that now in this day and age with social media and Google reviews and everything else, people's baseline expectation is quality job for the price you quoted me, prompt, timeliness when you arrive at my house. Like these are all baseline expectations. It's no longer a definition of good service. This is the minimum of what people expect when they call a plumber out, or they call a carpet cleaner, they call a restoration company, they work with a home remodeler. It's like being on time and doing a good job and being kind is minimum expectation. And so therefore, back to this, whole strategic planning deal, it's like as an owner, those good old boy, those old time values that we say we're building our business on, it's not enough because presumably everybody should be indexed on those things. So then what? So then what do you teach your people? How do we grow? How do we continue selling? How do we, I think that's the value of strategic planning. And I'll be honest, it's never been native to me to do strategic planning. Like this is not something, and Wayne knows this better than anybody else. This is not instinctive to me. Like my wiring, my internal wiring, and I think this is true of a lot of entrepreneurs, is we're impulsive. We're driven to make something. We're driven to go do something of value, to build something special. But we tend to be impulsive and we tend to be driven by our charisma. And some of us are driven to build things physically. We came up on the craftsman, the trade craft side of the business. Like, I'm good at this. I like doing this. I want to build and make stuff. Or then there's there's the others of us who enjoy influencing people. We're salespeople in some fashion. We're communicators. Those tend to make up the two different types of entrepreneurs. And then I think there's also the analysts. It's like they're those of us who are sort of driven towards managing information. And I think that's a lesser percentage of entrepreneurs that start companies, but there are those two that they like to crunch the numbers, do the math, move the money, and that's their main gift. And so they're probably that small percentage of owners that are out there, particularly in our industry, they probably have more of a natural inclination towards planning and analysis and strategic thinking. Maybe, maybe I don't even know if that's true, to be honest. So I think my point is that this is not native to us, and yet we've realized that we have to. And I think Wayne has been a figure on our team that has helped us understand the importance of that, and helped us create discipline within Floodlight around this strategic planning thing. But anyway, so that's all I would add is you can be successful without strategic planning, but only to a point. And where that point is, I don't know. It's different for everybody. We meet a lot of restorers that hit a ceiling at $2 million. Like I
Yeah.
literally, I just had a name flash in my head of a restorer that we don't yet work with that I've been wanting to work with for a long time, and they're stuck. And if they're listening to this, they probably know who they are. And they're stuck, and it's because one of the reasons is they don't do they. I think a lot of companies, this is the last thing I'll say. I mean, Wayne and I rap about this stuff constantly, and we could talk about this ad nauseum, but I think we we just we don't want to slow down, or we don't feel like we can slow down to do strategic planning.
hmm
There's like this really anxious feeling that owners get when they stop producing. It feels very uncomfortable. And you think about the chaos of a restoration company or even a carpet cleaning company. It's like when you're not working, this is what it feels like when we're not working, when I'm not dispatching my teams or, flipping the levers on our Google pay-per-click account to like try to get more if I'm not constantly trying to do, then it's a scary feeling to sit back and think as an owner. It feel like the feeling that comes over me sometimes is I start to feel afraid that it's all going to fall apart. And I think a lot of owners share that. If I stop to plan, I'm not doing, and things are going to slow down. And then
Yeah.
whether it's true or not, and there actually is some truth to it for some of these smaller owners, is when they don't have their foot on the gas, things do sometimes slow down a bit. But it's like that old, you know, myth or fairy tale or whatever, or the fable of two woodcutters are having a competition. And the old salty dog, right? He stops about 5 minutes into it, and he stops to sharpen his axe. Every 5 or 10 minutes during the competition, he stops to sharpen his axe. Well, meanwhile, the young buck is just going after it. And who cuts the tree down faster? The guy who stops to sharpen the freaking axe, you know? But I think that's what prevents a lot of people from strategic planning is they feel like they got to keep going. It's that grind. It's that hustle culture. You can always be grinding. And that can get you a ways until it doesn't get you anywhere anymore, you know?
And I would definitely say, no time is the right time. You just have to make time,
Mhm.
right? Especially for
Yep.
those who are owner operators, right? I think that's
Yep.
most people in this space are going to be owner operator. That's on the cleaning side, that's on the restoration side. I mean, I know you guys probably see it a little bit more than I do, but the amount of people you talk to that are like still in the field, but they're supposed to run their strategy, they're supposed to run their operations, they're supposed to run their financials, but yet they're in the field doing the work. They just can't fathom finding the time to sit down and strategic plan, right? And
Yeah.
to your guys' point, it's like, yeah, that's great, but skill, talent, drive, it will run out. And do you want your business to stay around for another 30, 40 years? Because if that's the case, strategy plays a major role in the success of your business because eventually you're going to have to hand it off or sell your business, whatever seems right for you. And to hand the keys to the castle, you have to have some type of view, some type of strategy, proven things that work and things that don't work. But also to your guys' point, if you're not doing all of this, you don't even know where success begins and where
Yep.
problems start either, because all the lines are blurred and maybe what worked
Mm.
one time won't work again. And so I think taking the time to really plan accordingly, but also evaluate how many of these people that we're probably going to see may not have had the opportunity to sit back and evaluate or have their business evaluated, whether it's time, money, data, whatever the case may be, right? So you have to start somewhere. And I think this is a great place to really say it's not too late. Doesn't matter where you are in your business, whether you're fresh, brand new, 10 years or less, 10 years or more, or hey, maybe you're getting to the point where like, I want to sell my business to an employee or maybe private equity or whatever the case may be. The point is, you still have to have a strategy. You still have to have
Yeah.
it, period. It doesn't matter where you are. And I think that's what is so great about this, because no matter where you are, what your mindset is, you benefit from this
Mhm.
keynote. And it also ties into day two's keynote, which is really great. I appreciate that we have this overarching theme of strategy and almost balance, and being in sync, if I'm being quite honest, right? It starts at the top, and the people below you or who help you run your team can only be successful as you and your business are. So
Mhm.
implementing that, one, sets your business up for success, but it also sets your staff up for success, because then they're bought in, they're involved, and they're like, maybe we can do this. How about we do this? And then you have loyalty, right? Your team wants to grow with the business. So there's a lot of layers in this. Of course, we're kind of peeling them back, if you will. And I don't want to give everything away from what you guys are going to give. Just know it's going to be very interactive, right? I know you guys have some things up your sleeve, and I can't wait for that, because truly this industry needs that. And you're bringing together, cleaning, restoration, inspection. I mean, you've got people from indoor air side of things. They're all going to benefit from this no matter what business they're in. And I think that's the biggest thing that we talked about too. It doesn't matter what business you run. These steps and this mindset and this planning applies to everybody in the room.
Mm.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
enough about, what brought you guys here and what you guys are going to discuss. I want to dive into you guys, right? The fun, the meat and potatoes of Wayne and Chris. So I always like to ask somebody when I have them on, what is something that somebody may not know about you or would be surprised to know about you? And I'm going to take
Oh
it to a
boy.
different step of both personally and professionally. Usually I just stay personally, but I think professionally there may be some fun things about you guys that people may not know. So I'm going to bounce this one off to Wayne first. Um, Professionally, what is something somebody may not know about you? And then we can dive into personal after that.
Mm.
I guess this is more of a fun fact. But when I was 18, I got my life and health insurance license, and I slept on an office floor for a year, trying to basically get my feet off the ground as a commission-only salesperson as an 18-year-old. Made cajillions of cold calls and, walking into people's homes who are in their, 50s and 60s as an 18-year-old kid trying to sell them life insurance is it's a unique experience. It was a
Oh my
valuable
goodness.
experience. And yeah, definitely cut my teeth on that one. And I've got some wild living and sleeping at the office stories that we'll save for another episode. I think personally, I feel very called to bring this up right now because it's relevant to Chris and I's own lives at this point. So it ruffles my feathers a little bit when people try to tell me what I am or am not. I probably react more emotionally than I should. And when I first got to Floodlight, Chris would consistently make these statements about my natural wiring. And he would just make sure that he knew that the things that I knew, that the things that I was good at, it's because, that's naturally what I am. And I'm like, dude, you don't know me and you don't know what you're talking about. And one of those things is I'm literally getting ready to give a keynote on strategic planning, and my desire to be squared away kind of professionally, for lack of a better way of putting it, this overlaps to personal. It's just purely born out of necessity. I just think it's the most effective way to operate. I do absolutely none of that in my personal life whatsoever. If you ever try to make a plan with me about anything, I'm gonna go, we'll see. What do you think you want to do a month from now? We'll see. Chris and I are going to go to this music festival in July. It's going to be incredible. I'm really excited. And it's like, hey, we should rent a car together. And I'm like, I'll look into that maybe 3 days before we take off and let them know what I think. You know, and it's a total. I know that people don't love it who have the unfortunate reality of being close to me personally, but it's just the absolute. I mean, and Chris can speak to it, just like the most polar opposite experience that you would have for me professionally is a bit of a fun fact. I'm a no planner, go with the flow. Everything, all the doors are always open on the personal side, and professionally, always trying to close as many doors as possible and focus and all the things, right? So I think that getting to know that if you meet me in a professional sense and then learn me personally is probably like, whoa.
I would definitely say too, I would have never seen that one coming if I'm being quite honest, just
Yeah.
because of the jujitsu and then, the strategic side of your mind. I was like thinking to myself, man, he probably is like one of those people that like I need a date, time, place,
No.
and then you just came in here and shat all over that. But that's
Yeah.
okay. Because I would definitely say we're all different in a
Yeah,
sense in our personal life, but we do have
Totally.
some similarities, right? So
Totally.
like, you know, to your point, there's probably aspects in your personal life that are planned, right? One of
Sure.
them being jujitsu, right? Like that
Yep.
is planned. And I just think it's interesting to kind of share that fun fact because then when people meet you and they get to know you, they're gonna be like, the light bulb's gonna go off. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
he does settle down
Yep.
outside of his
Exactly.
professional life,
Exactly.
which is great because I think that sometimes we see people and we just think that they're just grinding all the time. And it's like, dude,
Yep.
how do you live like that? You know what I mean? But
I
that's a
don't.
great
That's the
fun
secret.
fact.
That's the
That's a
secret. I
secret
don't.
sauce.
It will happen when it happens. I will get there when I get there. That's the secret. I save all the gas for the 8 to 10 hours, those working hours, and then I'm just filling the gas tank back up on the personal time. Everything, it'll happen when it happens.
yeah,
Balance, right? That's what we call that balance.
Yeah.
but it's important to note this other thing about Wayne is that while I guess this is what it's helped me understand being in relationship with Wayne is there's a difference between being a planner and being principled. And Wayne is
Mm,
very principled
that's
with
fair.
with how he treats his personal time and his personal life. So don't get it twisted that Wayne is just some hippie dude, chilling out on his couch eating Doritos and playing video games in his off time. Like that's definitely not the picture, right? So don't walk away with that impression because Wayne is one of the most principled people I know. So he does things based on some very deeply held principles. But
Sure.
that's different than being somebody who's always forecasting and planning and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Yeah,
So,
I would definitely say you put that in perspective there, Chris. Principled is a great way to definitely, label that, if you will. Now, Chris, some fun stuff about you professionally and personally that people may not know.
well,
He's told his
it's
story so many times. You're putting him in a hard spot here.
I know. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like, yeah, the stuff I haven't shared. Well, professionally, um, it's funny. Wayne and I share a background in insurance.
Mm.
So I actually I know even down to my like the feeling in my guts. I know what it's like to walk into somebody's home and try to sell them life insurance, and so I've felt that and lived that over and over again. So that's gosh, professionally. It was interesting. Some people don't know this about me. I've talked about it a little bit, but I did not grow up as an entrepreneur. And a lot of times, the typical entrepreneur story is, you run a lemonade stand when you're a kid and you're like the number one magazine salesman in the classroom fundraiser. That wasn't me at all. It wasn't me at all. And I didn't really discover a zeal for sales or business or anything like that really until I was about 19 years old. I started selling Cutco knives. And that was like a huge revelation to me because I grew up with a father who's a teacher and a mom who's a nurse. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial environment at all. And it was like that first realization of, wow, like I can get paid without a college degree. I can get paid to talk. Like that's a thing, is that people talk and they make money. Like, how great is this? And of course, this was on the heels of me working construction in the summers. I've told my son many times, because we drive past this one mobile home out by their high school that's on a like a 40 by 30 concrete pad. I helped pour that pad when I was like 17 years old, and
Nice.
it told me that I wanted to make money with my brain or my mouth more than I wanted to with my muscle. And and so I just lucked into it, with that selling job. And of course, that was the first of a number of businesses and sales jobs that I've held over the years. Um, but I didn't come from an entrepreneurial background at all. But I really grabbed onto it when I started to play in that space and realized, God, this is a great life for me, that I can earn a living by influencing others and teaching. And I think too, my dad was a teacher, my grandfather's a teacher. It's probably the thing that I most naturally gravitate towards. Is I love teaching and speaking, and that feeling of a light bulb coming on for people is really gratifying for me. I probably would have been a teacher had I not seen the backside of teaching with my dad doing it
Mm,
for 34 years, right? The
mm.
income limitations, and then a lot of the politics and just all the crummy things that happen in a school
Yeah.
district, and all that stuff, right? Um, so personally, I am I'm a very sort of bipolar person, and I don't mean that in the mental health way. I'm very uh what's another way of saying, I guess ironic, I don't know. I'm a bit of a homebody, and I really love adventuring. So it's like my wife and I spend a lot of time on our back porch, um sitting on our deck around our little solo stove, making fires in the evening and on the weekends. One of my favorite places to be on a Saturday morning is on my back porch, sitting next to my wife and with my kids around the fire, doing absolutely nothing. And I also love snow camping. And my wife and I love to travel, and I love music, and I love going to live shows. And I'm like super, super stoked about the festival that Wayne mentioned that we're going to in Montana. We're going to Whitefish, Montana for that. And so that combines my love for live music and really beautiful places. So I'm a bit of an adventurer at heart, and then I'm also just a hopeless romantic that loves just sitting with my friends. I have a men's group where we meet and we sit in the sauna every Wednesday, and we just hang out. And so I'm not much of a hobbyist per se. I just have a lot of adventuring that I like, different types of adventuring I like to do. So
Well, I would definitely say that's how we are in our personal lives, right? We're definitely a little different than our professional life. I too am a homebody, but we do like to travel as well. So, like, this week we're heading to Colorado and we're driving, we're not flying, like, but in a sense, like that's exciting for us, right? We love to just be a family and hang out. So I think that it's a balance, right? Because we're grinding all day, every day for work. And it's the little things that we like when we're not working with our friends and our family and enjoying the hobbies that we do have, right? So any closing words, gentlemen, before we sign off and say farewell until the next time?
I'll give Wayne the last note here. Wayne, close us out, brother.
I just I'm gonna add a little color to what I said earlier, just try to make it a little bit more tactical and maybe generate some excitement for this speech. I want to talk about this victim thing. Just one more little bit, okay? I started a LinkedIn post on Friday that started a pretty interesting conversation about what's happening as deductibles go up. And this is a perfect example of this. As deductibles continue to increase and we see residential claims go down, which I do not believe that that's a trend that's going to correct. I'm just going to go ahead and throw my 2 cents out into the sphere right now. I think that revenue in the industry may continue to be stagnant or increase due to catastrophic events. We've seen weather events uptick over the last 10 to 15 years relative to historics, etc. But I do think that residential claim volume is going to continue to go down. There's a couple different ways that you can handle that. There's a lot of people talking about it in the comments on this thing. You can start to really try to push for commercial. You can really tighten up and truly become a strong sales organization. A lot of people are looking at financing options to help with homeowners, right? If you go through your business and just show up on the job every single day, watch your file volume go down, iterate on the move based off what your friend Billy told you he's doing in his restoration company, and then end up with whatever you end up with, even if you survive, you're a victim. And you just ended up where you ended up because that's where you ended up. Or literally right now, you can understand that there are massive changes happening in volume in this industry and the small residential claims that a lot of owners use to more or less keep people at 40 hours a week year round. And you can look at the benefits of a commercial focused restoration company, and you can very intentionally look at the benefits of long term, what's going to happen if you start getting really good at providing financing options and selling those financing options as an organization. And you can understand what the pros and cons of those decisions are, and you can be intentional about choosing to go one way or the other. And that's a choice you can make. And when you have that business 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and you survived, you're not a victim. You built something intentionally, and you can probably do it again. And you can probably weather the next storm and come out with the outcome that you want, not just an outcome, because you've built that skill over time of strategically making a decision based off what it is you want from your company as an owner and then executing. That's what the talk's going to be about. So hopefully
Wow,
that gets
very
people
deep.
excited.
No, that is super exciting too, because I was also going to say, to your point about the conversation you started, that's just one of many
Just
conversations
one
that's
of many.
happening all over social media. And it's instead of
Mm.
being a victim or maybe part of a problem, let's be the solution. What's the solution for your business? Because the solution for Wayne might not be the same solution for Chris or myself, right? And that's okay. But
Yep.
intentionality, strategy, discipline, all of these things have to do with the success of your business. And if we can forecast some things, like you said, yes, weather events and natural disasters are going up, but your day-to-day claims, aren't, because why? Well, there's a lot of variables, but what variables affect your business? So I think, to your guys' point, this is very timely, but it also
Yep.
helps you implement the right strategy and intentionality for you and your business, because it's not a one size fits all. Everybody's in a different situation, and that's okay. And to your point, don't follow somebody else because it's successful for them, because it's not going to be your success probably. And that's okay. Everybody's success looks different, right? And that's what this is all about. You're going to take this talk and you're going to apply this to your business, and the person sitting next to you is maybe applying it in a different way, and that's okay. We will all find our own success with our
Yep.
intentionality and strategy for our business. Well, gentlemen, we have reached our time, and this was so great. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. We cannot wait to see you at the Experience Convention and Trade Show, September 3rd through 5th at the Caesars Forum Conference Center here in Las Vegas, Nevada. You can register now through our website at rnrmagonline.com. Of course, you can always find this lovely content on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. A very, very special thank you to you both for your time today and getting, to know you, but also what you're going to chat about. This is Trade Talks Unlocking the Experience. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas.